Okay, we're back. I'll let you in on a few little mistakes that I personally myself made there. As you noticed when I started to put it in, and you can see in the pan here, I do like to let it set and drain for a while, but that's not even just water that was in it. That's more like turkey grease. This is a fat bird. Anyway, because I had the thermometer up on the clip, now you can take this clip off and we'll get into the thermometer in a minute. However, the thermometer is resting against the side of the pan, not in the oil. You would think that your pan temp would be the same as your oil temp, but it wasn't. I was showing 310 or so. And after I shut the video off to set everything down, I put the thermometer in before I put the bird in, and the oil temp was at 360. You can put the bird in at 250 if you want. That's where I was getting to the part about you don't want it all the way up to temp when you go to put the bird in. Generally, when you're frying something, you want your oil at whatever temp you're going to cook at. Whatever you put in it, it's going to lower the temp. You can put like frozen chicken, something like that, chicken strips, chicken nuggets, whatever. It will take the temp down, then it'll come back up, but you want it up to temp. That keeps whatever you're frying from getting greasy. Well, this is such a big bird, such a big piece of meat, that, you know, we're looking at 45 minutes to an hour, depending on your size of bird, 14, 16, 18, 20 pounds, whatever. So the bird's not going to be greasy from putting it in a slightly lower temp oil. So feel free to put it in. Now don't put it in, 100, 150 degrees. Then you'll never get it up to temp. But between 250 to 300, if you've got a nicely drained bird, I generally put it in at 300, but check your oil temp before you put it in, which is where I screwed up. So there's a nice little safety tip for y'all. And that was my fault. I knew better. So anyway, and always, bad lighting, keep a grease-rated fire extinguisher on hand when you're doing this. I have that one. I have another one behind me. Also, when I went to put the bird in, I shut the flame off. That's a real good safety tip. A lot of people don't do that. What happens is when I went to put this bird in, I'd shut the gas off. I'd check my oil temp. My oil temp was still up to 360, even after sitting there for, 4 or 5 minutes while I went to get another pot holder and to go chase down my welding gloves. I love my welding gloves for doing turkeys. So anyhow, while I was chasing those down, I came back, the oil was still above 350. So when I went to put the bird in, it did splatter over the side. The hollow through the bird, the oil was coming up through it and it was like a little jet. And it actually squirted oil out this side right here, which I did wipe off with a paper towel. But if you have the burner going and that oil does splatter and it gets on the outside, that's where you see all these 4th of July fireworks displays on people frying turkeys. A lot of them on the 4th. It's because when that oil hits that burner, it's going to instantaneous light, it's going to vaporize, it's going to fireball, and it's going to set that whole pot on fire. So, really good safety tip. Shut your flame off before you put the bird in the pot. You can always relight your pot. So that's another thing. As you see, you can hear it boiling. I'm not about to take that lid off right now. I'm going to leave it on, let it steam out. Once I put the bird in for the first 15 minutes, I won't even take the lid off. That's to mitigate the oil from splattering over from the water that's still boiling out of the bird. So while that's sitting there cooking, we'll get into thermometers. Do you have to have a thermometer? You don't have to. Do you need a thermometer? Exponentially, yes. The reason is, and we'll get into thermometers here, and if I don't run out of card time, We'll get into why I got the thermometer I got. Here's a couple of the meat thermometers. As you can see, they're a short shank. That wouldn't fit my hole. That one would, but I didn't have this one at the time. However, get a long shank thermometer. Reason is you want this going down into your oil. Now, before we get into the thermometer pits, a lot of your fryers, now this is basically a stock pot. It's not a dedicated turkey fryer. This is the larger, as you can see, and it's a stock pot. But most of them will have a cutout here. Don't want to get oil on my thing. But they'll have a cutout inside where your thermometer can stick in this one. A lot of people make this mistake. My uncles who fry turkeys all the time, that's one of the mistakes they make. I pointed out to them one day, they said, we never thought about that. What they always did before, what a lot of people do, and the reason that cutout is in the side is so you can angle that thermometer. You stick the thermometer in your bird, and then you read the thermometer. When the internal temperature of the bird comes up to your desired temperature, bird's done. The problem with that is you're checking the temperature on the inside of the bird, not the oil. The only way to get around that is you have one in the bird and one in the oil. That would take 2 thermometers. This, to me, is the simplest, easiest, bestest way. The reason you want to keep your oil temp at 350 is because, depending on the oil you're using, a lot of people use peanut oil. Peanut oil has a higher flash point. You can get away generally. I don't like to. You can still burn peanut oil, but it's not going to be as bad to burn as what canola or especially vegetable oil. Vegetable oil, the sugars are going to start caramelizing and burning at above 350. That's where you get that burnt taste or burnt sugar taste. It's because the sugars in the vegetable oil, or corn oil especially, has a really high sugar content. Your sugars are going to burn at that temperature. So what I do, I keep the thermometer in the oil. Now that I've got the bird in there, my oil level is up to here. So therefore, I'm monitoring the oil temp and nothing but the oil temp. I am up to, after putting that huge bird in there, it took it down to just below 300. I'm at about 310, but I did turn my heat down, so I'm going to turn my heat up just a hair. Just a little at a time, and I'm going to bring that up to 350. Once it gets to 350, I'm going to monitor it pretty closely. You always want to stay right with these. You know, don't go sit in the lounge chair, have a cold one, smoke a stogie, and watch the game. You got to stay right with this stuff. So, once this comes up to full temp, it takes very, very little heat to keep it at temp. So once this hits 350, I got to start backing my heat off. If that needle starts rising, I got to back my heat off a little bit more. It starts going up 355, 360, back the heat off a little more. Once you get to 350, it takes very, very little flame to keep that exactly at 350. So there's a few little hints and tips on that. Again, the reason I cook it at 350, my oil's not going to burn. I'm going to get a better flavor. I'm going to get a better cook-through time on the bird. It's not going to be burnt and crusty on the outside and still not quite done around the bone. And trust me, poultry, you do not want not done around the bone. So 350 is pretty much the perfect ideal to cook this at. Also at 350, I find canola half the price of peanut oil. I think the canola has a better flavor. That's me personally, and everybody that I've ever cooked a bird for, Again, they've always said I've had the best birds, not bragging. I'm just telling you what they told me. I thought, well, that's average. They're like, you're nuts. It's the best bird ever. You say so. But that's because I use canola. Again, the reason most people use peanut has a higher flash point. It's less heat sensitive. You don't have to worry as much about burning your oil. But if you got you a nice thermometer, monitor your oil temp, not your bird temp, it's not an issue. So if I don't run out of cordage here, oh, I got a 12:57 left. Okay, so this actually tells me how much time I got. All right, so I can do this. What I did, the first bird that I did, if I hadn't mentioned it yet, I'm getting kind of, multitasking here, so I forget things. Because I didn't have my long stem thermometer and I didn't have a thermometer I could leave in, I was using a regular meat thermometer. Take the lid off, stick the thermometer in. My oil's 325. Wait 5 minutes, take the lid off, stick the thermometer in. My oil's 340. Wait 5 minutes, take the lid off, stick the thermometer in. My oil's at 375. 380, still climbing. Didn't hurt the bird any, but it did put a little bit of burn on the oil. This is the third bird in this oil. And I've got about 45 seconds here, so I'll restart, so there will be a part 3. But it really, really saves your oil. If you keep this oil at 350 and you don't burn it, you can cook 4 or 5 birds in it. Not a problem. And when we come back, I'll tell you how to keep your oil in between without it turning rancid. Okay.